Very good morning, my dear friends. I am Prashant Mahwani and I warmly welcome all of you to StudyIQ. I hope you all are doing good. Let's see what we have got in the Hindu today. But before that, Lao Tzu, the best fighter is never angry. What do you understand by this statement of Lao Tzu? Do let me know and do discuss this thing in the comment section. Very important thing. Anger is something very common. It is not bad to get angry. I must tell you this thing, right? But you should know how to channelize your anger. This is the most important thing. If you are thinking about this utopian world or ideal self of yours that you will never get angry, then this is something that is not going to be possible at present or in near future. But one thing that we can learn is to channelize this anger. So do let me know about this statement. What do you understand by this thing said by Lao Tzu? The best fighter is never angry. With this, dear friends, StudyIQ provides pen drive and tablet courses for various different exams, as you can see on your screen. The good thing is that great holy sales are on. Huge discount is available on our pen drive and tablet courses. To find out more about it, check out studyiq.com. With this, the first editorial that we have is about this FATF. Now, what this FATF stands for, it is Financial Action Task Force. What it does is basically it monitors all those countries who are supposed to take action, right? And it basically also monitors action taken against this terror financing and money laundering. What are the steps that we are taking? Right, this is something that is watched or looked after by this Financial Action Task Force. Now the thing is why it is in news and why we find it in today's editorial. The thing is because it has decided that Pakistan, it has decided to place Pakistan back on its watch list. We know it very well that Pakistan, you know, Pakistan is a breeding ground or nursery for this terrorists and their organization. We know it very well, this Haqqani network and Hafiz Saeed, and you have a long list of small and big terrorists, and this is not something that only India is talking about. There are other countries. USA is there, you have UK, France, Germany. There are other countries that are not happy. Afghanistan is there. In Asia as well, you have many other countries. Bangladesh, I can go on and on. Japan is not happy about this Pakistan and the way it is providing this breeding ground to all these terrorists as well as their organizations. Now this step or this decision of this FATF to bring Pakistan back under this magnifying glass is of course an appropriate as well as an overdue decision, right? This should have been done a bit earlier on. And we also know this blatant violation that Pakistan does all the time towards its obligation in fighting or curbing this terror financing and money laundering and other things. And this is one of the main reasons why we see this big cracks, or there is a big valley between when we talk about relationship between India and Pakistan, right? And this is the reason why India keeps on telling that unless and until you don't sort out this terrorist groups, or if you don't provide us an environment that is free of terror, we will not talk with you. This is important as well. We have to stand. We have to take this stand and we have to hold our ground when it comes to Pakistan. Now the thing is, you have this International Cooperation Review Group, and I believe that this FATF thing, this FATF, this organization, basically you need to or this team or this task force, I think as you can see here, the main, I have already explained how it works or what is the main objective of this FATA. Now in terms of how it works, you have this International Cooperation Review Group, and the main job of this International Cooperation Review Group is to make recommendations to this FATA. Very important for your MCQ. You know, you find this type of tough level MCQs, you have at least 9 to 10, maybe 12, sometimes plus minus 10. If you on an average, if you take 10, then you can take plus 2 or minus 2. So ranging between 12 to 8, you have every year you find this type of MCQs. I have one for you today, right? I'll just show you a sample. I'm sure many of you would be aware about or would you be familiar with this type of difficult MCQ? So this information here is important in terms of MCQ. Now, the thing is, let's move on, and let me highlight one more thing regarding this FATF is that you have this grey list. Basically, grey list is this watch list of, as I told you, this magnifying glass on Pakistan will be placed by this FATF. So that the official name is grey list. So keep this thing in mind as well. Don't forget this one. And the sad thing is, we have seen this 1267 Security Committee, Security Council, Sanctions Committee of United Nations, right? So United Nations, UNSC's Sanctions Committee 1267, and we know how China has always, you can say, provided a shield or cover to Pakistan by using its veto power, and something similar has happened now. And there is a matter of worry for India, because you see, on one side we have this USA, UK, then you have this France, Germany, right? All these countries decided that they should place Pakistan under this severe sanctions, and the way things are done by Pakistan is not right. But Pakistan was saved by China, like always. But the sad thing is that you have Saudi Arabia, you have Turkey, and you have this Gulf Cooperation Council. They have saved Pakistan this time, and this is a matter of concern for India, because recently our Prime Minister was in UAE. He visited Palestine, he visited this Oman as well, and if you go through it, then you find this Gulf Cooperation Council, you find these countries part of this GCC. And if GCC is providing shield to Pakistan, then this is something, you can say, paradoxical, because when our Prime Minister was there at that point of time, these countries and their heads were talking about this fight against terrorism and not supporting this view of good terrorism and bad terrorism. And then here you find, so this is something that is still, you can say, lack of understanding when it comes to terrorism, lack of understanding when it comes to Pakistan's state policy. So, and this FATF listing, of course, will not miraculously change Pakistan's behavior. Pakistan, as I told you, was under this lens of FATF earlier on as well. But sanctions, right? We have to be a bit tough on Pakistan. Only when I think one of the means there is one way, external, and you can have basically two ways, right? So one is external and one is internal. In terms of this internal change, it is the public or the citizens of Pakistan, right? They have to rise up. Only then we will find any change. This is until and unless we don't find a big revolution taking place in Pakistan, things are not going to change. With this second one, this editorial is about this Delhi High Court's order. Yesterday it was in news. Remember this insurance, you have this exclusion clauses in your insurance, and basically this Delhi High Court has struck down this discriminatory exclusion clause in a health insurance policy. This particular thing, this case is pertaining to this United India Insurance Company, and they rejected a claim of its client, citing that this is the disease that particular client got. This insurance company said that it is a genetic disorder, and we do not cover genetic disorder under our insurance policy. Check out our terms and conditions. So a case was filed, and finally Delhi High Court has taken a very right stand. The reason why I'm saying a very right stand is because you have this exclusion clauses, and they finally defeat the whole purpose of taking a health policy or health insurance. I'm sure you know about this thing as well. You might have heard about this thing somewhere, that you take insurance and then you find when you are in hospital, you find that you feel that you have insurance cover and you feel happy and safe about it. But when you are in hospital at that point of time, your insurance company will tell you that the thing that you have got is not covered under our terms and condition thing. And we have this fine print of this terms and condition, isn't it? In everything you buy, you have this very tiny you cannot read this sentences and this whole contract details. It is something similar to the thing that you can see on your screen, right? This, see, it's very hard to read. I have to keep it like this way for copyright and other things, but this is the thing, that they give us a very non-readable sort of script, and they know it very well. This is something that the business houses, right, they are best in making fool out of us. They know our nature, they know how a common man or woman behaves, so they know this behavior, that no one is going to read this lengthy and tiny, hard to read lines and this whole pages. So they can add whatever they like, and they have this battery of lawyers and other law experts who will guide them in framing all these terms and conditions. So they are designed in such a way that they are basically weighted in favor of the insurer, and they are designed to avoid claims. And I think the need of the hour is to change this thing as well, this terms and condition thing. They should be written in the most, you can say, simple language as possible. We know it very well that if you read a couple of lines, then you will find it very difficult to understand. Even if you are an educated person, even if you have cracked the Civil Services Examination, even if you are a topper of at UPSC, I bet you will find it very difficult to go through this terms and condition, right? Because they are designed, and as I told you yesterday or a couple of days ago, we were talking about this thing, that you have this people, experts, right? They select each and every word, and then they will place these words. So they make it a bit difficult, and then you can take out many interpretation out of it and things like that. So this is something that we need to change. This is a proactive step that we can take in terms of this terms and condition. It should be printed in visible letter, and the language as well should be simple, so a layman as well can understand it. And this is possible when you go there to buy a car or any technological product. The salesman can explain you everything in a simple language so that you can understand, and this is how persuasion works. Yesterday we were talking about, right? It is part of this persuading or persuasion theory. So they will use at that point of time very simple language. But when you go there with a fault or something, then they will bring out this terms and condition thing. Moving on. The good thing is that Supreme Court has said that this is not just a matter of contractual issue. It is not just between two parties, right? It is not just between an insurance giver and insurance taker. It is about Article 21 of the Constitution. It is about right to health, and the Supreme Court's advice in this matter. When I say Supreme Court, I mean to say, I beg your pardon, I'm talking about this High Court, not Supreme Court. It was just a slip of tongue here. So this High Court has said that this is not just a matter of just contract issue. It is about health, and center and IRDA is this body that is looking after insurance in our country, should pay a heed to it, because one thing is there, that right to health is a meaningful, it becomes meaningful only when you have access to medical care. Now if I'm taking insurance and if I'm at the end of the day, if I'm not having any access to medical facilities, either because there is no facility available over there, or either because the quality of the things or quality of this medical facility is not going to be up to the mark, or you can say because of this insurance. If for any of these reasons, if I'm not able to access medical care, right, then this should be a matter of worry for the center as well as this IRDA. The other thing is, we are talking about this government recently in this budget session. We talked about this National Health Protection Scheme, and if you go through this National Family Health Survey number 4, then we find that only 29% of households in our country are having some sort of health insurance, and that too, and when I'm saying some sort of, I mean to say this health insurance are limited ones. They are not covering everything. They are just limited bits and pieces here and there. Someone has got protection for 5 lakh rupees, but then you find that when you God forbid, if someone catches cancer, then you will find that your 5 lakh rupees cover is of no use, because the treatment is going to be more than 5 lakh rupees. So these are the things, limited bits and pieces here and there, it is not going to help. We need a universal coverage in our country, and we can learn from Barack Obama as well, what he did during his tenure as a president of United States. This strict obligations were placed on insurers and unreasonable exclusions were removed, right? Government literally came out with all these terms and conditions, or you can say these guidelines, that you cannot have this unreasonable exclusions. Something like a genetic disorder should be covered as well. Genetic disorder is something that you don't have any control on. If you are getting something because of your, say for example, rough driving or wrong habits, then that is something that can be blamed on you. But genetic disorder is something that is out of your control. Now, as we're talking about this thing, that coverage should be universal, one more thing is that we need to bring out this regulations on costs. You know, in India we have, in different cities, different hospitals, or in same city, different hospitals, you have different cost of treatment. Regarding when it comes to information, it is asymmetrical. Insurance takers can't negotiate as well. You cannot negotiate with your company regarding what you want and what you want to drop and things like that. And if you are right as well sometimes, then they will bring out these terms and conditions. So there are many things that we have to learn, but one thing is there for sure, this access thing. Without quality medical facility, nothing is going to change, right? You can have the best insurance cover, but imagine when you go to a hospital and if you don't have that facility, primary, secondary or tertiary, then this is not going to help. Your insurance cover is not going to help at all. This one is about concerned by the quadrilateral, right, arrangement. We have talked about this thing many a times, and I'm sure you know. Let's revise very quickly, right? You have this last year 2017, this article is talking about that in East Asia Summit in Manila, that is capital of Philippines, this quadrilateral was revived, or it resurrected. Now quadrilateral, you have these 4 countries. Here you have, one is Japan, you have India, USA and Australia. These are the 4 countries that form this Quad, and Quad is not something that is altogether new. 10 years ago, a decade ago as well, it was in news for another reason. At that point of time, this Quad was locked in the door or behind the bar, or you can say it was basically buried for time being, on temporary basis. China at that point of time was not happy about this Quad thing that was discussed earlier on, and finally a decade ago this plan was dropped, but now it has resurrected and it is back in business. So and we know one more thing, that this is basically to control this assertive or aggressive China. Remember yesterday's discussion on Xi Jinping? We talked about this thing, that under his regime, China has decided to keep their head high, and if you have to kick someone, then do it. If you have to elbow someone, then do it. At the same time, making sure that your economic interests are achieved. So this is the new policy of China, and to control this rising China, 4 of these nations have decided to come together. And the good thing is, last week it was revealed that these 4 countries are working to establish a joint regional infrastructure scheme as an alternative to this China's Belt and Road Initiative. This is going to be not a sort of aggressive stand, or of course you know these 4 countries, it is more about keeping this whole region safe and sound, this Indo-Pacific region, right? Earlier on it was known as Asia Pacific, but now you find Indo-Pacific. It is covering this portion here and this portion here, and because of China is the main player or main threat for all these 4 countries and other countries as well in this part of the world. So this is a softer side of this Quad engagement. We know this Japan and India together, they started this Asia Africa Growth Corridor. A couple of days ago I asked you a question as well on this thing, this Asia Africa Growth Corridor, and you never know, in upcoming mains as well as your prelims you may be asked a question on this thing about geography of this AAGC or countries that are falling under this Quad, right? This sort of questions you may expect, because these are some of the big things that have taken place back in 2017, and they are going to take place in 2018 and in the future too. So important article as well as important discussion in terms of your prelims and your mains, so do pay attention to this thing. So we know this Asia Africa Growth Corridor and this Quad as well, now they have decided to come out with a substitute, or you can say a competitor for this BRI. So new things will be on table at global platform. And when we talk about this BRI, right, it is about infrastructure, but at the same time we know it is a way of colonizing poor countries. This is how China rolls. And if we see this Indo-Pacific region, then developing nations, as per various estimates, it is said that developing nations or developing countries in this Indo-Pacific region will require $26 trillion for infrastructure development by 2030. So you can imagine this 26 trillion is not a small amount at all. There are many ways to do this thing, right? We can either say yes to this BRI, whatever China is doing, and can top up things, or you can add or build on the things that are already done by China. But then it will give, you can say, a very upper hand or a strong hand. This is basically adding more muscles to the biceps of this China. So, and we know this CPEC as well. So this is something that this is one of the reasons why countries are not in favor of thoroughly or blindly supporting BRI. And of infrastructure is something that is need of the hour for this in Indo-Pacific region, no doubt. But we have to be conscious. We have to keep this thing in mind as well. This colonization of China, or Chinese way of colonization, it will give you money. They will give you money for your projects, and then you will be in a debt trap, and then finally a Chinese company will take over. So this is something that is practiced by China. We know things happening with the CPEC, Hambantota, you have these Maldives ports, and other African countries as well are going through the same colonization problem of China. And the biggest concern about BRI is that it is a means of cementing Chinese economic hegemony. This is the thing, it is about domination of China. So let's see. And here interesting thing, Arctic policy white paper presented by China. It is talking about this Polar Silk Road as well. Now in near future we will learn more about this thing, Polar Silk Road. Let's see, right? We will find, I'm sure we will find some good articles on this thing as well. Moving on to a very interesting article. When I say interesting, it is talking about this Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanams, TTD is going to train 500 Dalit youths to make them priest. So you know, being priest as well is a source of livelihood, and you will get all this food and other things and things like that. So it is basically providing you a job, right? And they are going to train this Dalit youths, and this one of the main reasons. See, this TTD is a very conservative group, and when they are training these 500 Dalit youths, so basically they are trying to send this signal out in the society that it is not about it's not just about any top class or any particular caste, right? Anyone can become priest if they are following the right methods and things like that. Now of course we have another group, Orthodox group. They are not going to be happy about this decision of TTD because of their privileges, right? There will be a breach of their exclusive privilege. They will find direct competition with this Dalit youths that are trained by this TDT. Now, one thing that we have to keep in mind is Supreme Court, right? The Supreme Court back in 2015 said caste and birth should not determine induction of priests in temple. It should be your domain of knowledge, right? How much knowledge you have regarding your job, or you may say this priesthood, traditional codes of practice, and above all, it also said that equality before law, right? Equality should be there, and this is something that is, rather than court saying it, it is something that religious groups, they should understand this thing, that if you are talking about God, and in our Indian culture, we talk about this thing that God resides in everything. And then at the same time, if you are creating this sort of segmentation that someone is up and or upper level, someone has upper level, someone has bottom level, then this is basically going against your own, you can say, philosophy. So this is very paradoxical thing. And here the interesting thing is, do we really need to train, or do we need more priests, or do we need more people with scientific and rational thinking? I'm not imposing my views here. This is a question that I would like to ask you. You can take it as today's descriptive question, right? Do we need more priests, or do we need more people with scientific and rational thinking? I must mention here that I will not entertain any sort of hate comments, right? This is not acceptable. You are educated people. I have seen so far, I must say that in this version I don't find that many abusive or aggressive thing, but I must warn you, because this is something that I have seen in different comments of different some of my colleagues as well. I have seen their underneath their video section, people do pass aggressive as well as hateful comments. So I don't expect from at least when I say my students, right, I'm talking about all those who are sincere and serious about their career. I'm not talking about the ones who are just here to pass their time and waste their time, in fact. So do take it seriously and think about it. With this, dear friends, this one is about 1947 singularity. Very interesting article. I would reckon all of you to go through it. It is about Constitution. Now, it starts with some very interesting question. Is our Constitution a discontinuity with the colonial past? Basically, what it is saying is that, is it something that we have, it is just a makeup that we have done with our Constitution? Or is it just a change of rulers that we have with the help of new Constitution, right? Earlier on, we used to have British ruling over us. Now we find there are many political parties and politicians who are behaving in such a way that they are our rulers. In fact, if we go through the books and rules and regulations, then we find that they are, in fact, they are there to serve us, not to rule us. So you have this very interesting question raised by this article, that is it just a makeup that we have done on a piece of you can say laws or our Constitution, or is it something that we have is real? Now you have this yes sayers. There are people who agree with this thing that it is just a makeup thing, because even today we find this ordinance making power. We have this emergency powers, we have this sedition laws and 377 and blasphemy laws and other things are already there. It is very strange that Supreme Court as well said that this Constitution did not seek to destroy the past institutions. It raised an edifice on what existed. So Supreme Court back in history a couple of years ago said this thing that all these institutions that we have, like the best one I can think about is police, right? You know, even today, and it's not just police, right? There are many different institutions in our country. They are still in this deep hangover of colonial past. The way they treat us, they consider not us like as like citizens. They think of us like we are subject of this British Raj. And this issue of suffrage basically means universal or this voting rights, right? It all started back in 1919, and it was an incremental change. Gradually, or this, there is a question, right? The question is, if other things are make up, and when we compare this thing with our universal right, or when I say universal suffrage, not universal right but universal suffrage, basically means anyone above 18 has right to vote. This is called universal suffrage. And when we compare our constitution and other institutions with this universal suffrage, then we find that this is the only one of the thing, rather than having incremental change, it had a radical change, because till 1935, till 1947, you can say, before independence, right, only 10% of Indian population was eligible to vote, and you have this article is based, basically explaining this gist of this book, how India became democratic citizenship and making the universal franchise, by Israeli scholar Ornit Shani something, right. So early on, when we compare this today's universal suffrage or universal franchise, we find that it is different or radical when we compare it with colonial Raj. First thing is, arithmetically, it is, as I told you, only less than 10% of Indians were eligible to vote under this 1919 and 1935 Government of India Act. But after 47, or you can say when Constitution came into existence, since then, everyone, right, 100%. If you are above, earlier on it was 21, but now it is 18. If you are above 18, then you have this right to give your or place your vote. The second thing is, structurally as well, it is very different, right? We don't, earlier on you used to have this separate electorates for Hindus and Muslims and Sikhs and other, then you have this division of class and economic lines, and this is the reason why we find this quote from Gandhiji. He said that a person who is working hard is not allowed to vote, but a person just having money is allowed to vote. So this is something that is not right and not acceptable in any democracy. So structurally as well, today's this universal suffrage is quite different. Character of the electorate. Voting entitlements were based on property and formal literacy based qualification. If you are not educated, if you don't have property, then you cannot vote. This was the thing in British era, but now that is not the case. Even the poorest of the poor can vote, and it was a gift under British, but it is a right under our constitution. So what we can learn from this thing is that if this is a lighthouse, or this can be a lighthouse for other institutions as well. Many a times we find Supreme Court, high courts, we find government, state government, central government, different departments and agencies of the government. They behave, they still have this colonial hangover. They should have this. They should learn from this universal suffrage, and they should treat people of this country as citizens and not as their subjects. With this, dear friends, news items of the day: peaceful, largely peaceful polling in Meghalaya and Nagaland, though if you compare it with last elections rates or these numbers, then we find that this percentage has gone down. Maldives has rejected this Milan exercise. Milan is a naval exercise conducted by India, and 23 countries so far have been invited, out of which 16 have said that they have confirmed that they are going to take part in it. Sisodia said that police officer, not police, but these officers, right, IAS, they are skipping this meeting, and LG, Lieutenant Governor, has suggested Kejriwal to reach out to all these officers, because at the end of the day, this thing took place in his residence and in his presence. Very interestingly, I beg your pardon, I should not, but the thing is, we know this Darwin thing going on, and the person that you can see on your screen, he was in fact an IPS officer, and now he is a politician, and he said that he does not believe in this Darwin thing, Darwin's theory, and so he is going to be a chief guest at a Science Day event. So again, this scientific temper thing, you know, yesterday we were talking about the superstition and other things. So many more questions, and you may find this type of question, I believe, in your mains examination regarding scientific temper and things like that. Different angles can be formed out of it. Vietnam and India to discuss South China Sea. You know, this problem going on between Vietnam and China regarding the South China Sea. So India may support, and India is also inclined towards this gas and oil exploration in South China Sea. China is not happy about India's stand, and it is not happy about Vietnam as well. So let's see. This one is about Korean investment will be protected. Korea is a country, right? You will of course read this thing, but let me add some extra or additional information, background information here very quickly. Korea is a country that its story is about rags to riches, right? It was a very poor country, and today it is one of the most developed country. It has, in fact, in terms of innovation, it has surpassed Japan as well. It is investing somewhere around 4% of its GDP every year in innovation, and this is the reason why you see big companies, Samsung, LG, Hyundai, right, and there are other companies. 500 companies are just here in our country, and they are all across the board. They are expanding. So many things that we can learn from Korea, and this one is about science propelling India's development. There are many important items given here, so please go through it. It's not possible for me to take you through everything, but very important advert that you find in the last page of the Hindu today. So this is a question for you. This is the one I was talking about. See, what happens with this type of questions is that first of all, they will give you that this is about Niti Aayog, and then they give you the why or what is the thing that Niti Aayog is talking about. So you have this hybrid vehicle, methanol, and then you have different statements, and this is just like, you can take it, you don't have one question, but you have like 4 questions mixed up in one. So this is how the difficulty level goes up. So this type of questions you should have to the point, a good understanding, and this revision plays a very important role. Whatever you read, you should revise. I have told you this thing earlier as well. So do try to attempt this one. And one more thing that I would like to add here is that our team is building this MCQs, right? This test series, and you have this, all this different exams are covered under it, and UPSC's this type of tough questions as well with explanation will be provided. So make sure you check out studyiq.com to know more about it. And that's everything that we have got here. I will see you all soon. Enjoy your studies. Jai Hind.